All right, well, we're a minute after. We'll get started with kind of some of the introduction stuff, and then we'll move into our feature presenter here shortly. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for joining the August virtual DevOps Meetup meeting. So my name is Mike Douglas. So thanks again for joining. Really excited for today. I don't have a whole lot of announcements at this time. So we've got only one upcoming meeting on the calendar. It's in October. It is the Global DevOps Bootcamp. We did it last year. It was a lot of fun. This year it was supposed to be in May. For obvious reasons, it was moved. We're hoping to do it again in October. I think it's at the end of October, if I remember right. So fingers crossed, we'll be able to get it, an on-prem or an in-person meetup then. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm fingers crossed, but I don't know if that'll quite work out. So if it is, it'll probably be pushed back to another date, but hopefully we'll have it. It was a lot of fun again, kind of a hackathon for DevOps. So we're there. September meetup though, we've actually been on a really good cadence of having somebody come talk every month. But this month September, we actually don't have anybody right now. So if you know anybody or know anybody that's interested, definitely reach out. I'd like to have them come talk. That'd be great. Doesn't have to be anything formal. Just anything they want to share what they're doing in the DevOps world. So I'll send out probably something to the whole group there. We're up to almost like 700 members. So hopefully we'll be able to get somebody out of there because I'd like to keep this going. It's fun to have it every month. We'll look to have a virtual one in October if that doesn't work out to do the boot camp, and then hopefully we can kind of keep moving it through there. So that's kind of some of the upcoming events. There's other events coming around the town too, like HTC and some things like that. So, but again, all virtual. But yeah, so there's that. Our sponsor, I don't know if Don was able to make it. I'm checking here to see. He wasn't sure if he's going to be able to make it. He had a personal thing come up today. So, but our sponsor is Orsi Software. And I just wanted to say something real quick about them. Really appreciate them sponsoring our group. They're going to provide us 2 $50 gift cards giveaway. We'll do that at the end. But if you're not familiar, they're really specialized in DevOps strategy to delivering complex pipeline solutions, tool integration to decision critical analytics, continuous testing through application security. Orsi offers expert guidance, services, and tools to accelerate the delivery of quality, secure applications that drive business. So thanks again. He might, Dom said he was going to hopefully try to pop in later. If he does, that'll be great. If not, we'll make sure we get the gift cards and everything afterwards. So kind of formalities tonight. So Steven's going to be our presenter here, and if you do have comments throughout the talk, feel free to put them in the chat window. And then if you don't, and definitely at the end, I assume we'll hopefully have some time to Steven, or feel free to if you want people to unmute and ask questions during. It's really up to you. I'll kind of leave it up to there, but we'll do the drawing at the end, and then that's really it. So if nobody else has anything, we'll go ahead and get started with our presentation. Steven, I'm going to turn it over to you. I think I need to make you a host here, and we'll be able to do that. And my dog is making some noises there. I think they're set to host. I think you can then.
You guys see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. By all means, I want this to be kind of an interactive talk. So if there's something you have questions about, feel free to hit me up. This is an area that I'm pretty passionate about when it comes to combining DevOps with security, however you want to title that. So feel free to hit me up, stop me, say, hey, I got a question. But with that, I'll go ahead and hop in. So the talk, DevSecOps, automation, how to make security, automation can be security friendly. is keeping security top of mind while creating standards for engineering teams following the DevOps culture. This talk is designed to show off how easy it is to automate security scanning and to develop developer advocates, and to show quality development work. We'll cover some of the high level topics of DevSecOps and develop some examples. The key thing to keep in mind is we want to keep security top of mind. That's kind of the approach and take I'm going to go with this topic. What it's not is I'm not here to say, hey, we should change the title of DevOps to something else. Security in my mind is just one more piece of DevOps. When I say DevSecOps, I'll probably say it several times for the presentation. I literally just mean DevOps team, DevOps culture per se, with security top of mind. So it's literally not that security team's problem or that security guy's problem. It's, hey, we all have a problem with quality and security at times, so we need to keep security top of mind. And the thing I'll continue to drive, or what I've been trying to approach with this kind of topic, is why not change the topic matter from shift left to how can we extend security left and right? And I'll bring this up a couple more times throughout the presentation, but that's kind of the thing that I would suggest thinking about while going through the presentation. And who am I, obviously? And I'll share this later, so don't worry about copying URLs, but I've been in the software engineering space for over 10 years, so literally a decade. I'm a advocate for bicycling. A couple buddies and I rode across the state of Iowa last year for RAGBRAI, which unfortunately was canceled this year, of course. But that's who I am. So the presentation, like I was kind of alluding to, security is kind of my thing when it comes to DevOps or software engineering in general. I've got a strong passion for it. I want it to continue to grow and to evolve and make some strides forward in kind of the Midwest, because I haven't seen it as progress as fast as I think it should be. But to set the stage, the way I address this is whether you're in a highly regularized industry or not, security should be important. You might say, well, why? Well, whether your company produces a product that will be governed by somebody like an FFIC audit that may or may not happen. If you are held accountable to GDPR, you're going to need to have some type of policy or something you need to be able to report your results through. But even if you don't, it's always good to have some type of, hey, I'm going to meet this goal. So if you want to say, hey, I want a very high standard for my product development teams, you do something like PCI. We want to reach that as a standard for our organization. And not only having a governing body to your product that you're trying to build out or reaching those goals. During COVID, people right now are expecting your product to be reliable, easy to use, secure, because they have an opportunity, especially during COVID, to, if my app's not going to work and not be stable, I can easily switch to something else because I've got the time to do the investigation. If I don't see a valid cert while actually looking at the website and doesn't have a little lock in your browser window, I might just move on and buy my product for somewhere else or use somebody else's product, whether it happens to be reporting or whatever it is. If you're Amazon, your Spreetail, your whomever, having those types of things people are now paying a lot more attention to. So that's great. Like, you know, we have these things we want to adhere to. We have our literal customers, not just our clients, are asking some of these questions. What can we do? But it comes down to a policy that we as DevOps or on the engineering side of the house. And that policy is a secure software development lifecycle, or an SDL. If you haven't heard of that policy, this process requires an application based on design development to maintain to protect the integrity of all applications, functions, as well as sensitive data collected in association within the application. What that really means is that we have a process at which we are going to build our product. We're going to gather requirements, have some design cycle, actually build the thing, make sure it's following secure practices, do some quality assurance on it, and deploy it. Having these literal principles and stated in a policy that's communicated to our actual teams inside the organization as well as outside the organization. That's what we can control. That's kind of our space that we can kind of dictate on what we do and don't do. And obviously, since I'm more of the security guy, I'm going to have some suggestions. When it comes to that security phase, I would suggest having an easy way to find items, be able to fix it early, avoid replicating vulnerabilities. So things are out in the wild, let's try to trap it sooner in the cycle, not let them be duplicated, like copy pasta. We don't want our source code to be copied all over the place and replicated if we know it has some potential risk. So implementing some programs that try and address that early in the cycle, and then constantly working with your individual teams, so your quality assurance teams, your literal engineering teams, have that constant feedback to make sure that they're adhering to the policy, but also if, hey, they've got feedback and they want some changes made to it, have that constant communication. So what does that really look like? We know our clients now, our customers' expectation. We've got a policy now. How can we make that policy a thing, right? Sometimes when it comes to security, they go, oh, it's just scanning or it's just review cycle. Well, there's a lot more to it we can add. In general, yes, having some type of code analysis tool. So literally looking at the source code, reviewing it as it stands, whether it be through a tool like Checkmarx, you can automate, obviously, having some type of change control management program put in place. So having some type of way to, with speed and accuracy, deploy our applications, but also have some type of reporting structure around it. With that being said, too, having that compliance aspect and monitoring. So having some type of trail, audit trail for the application, as well as audit trail for the tools that are actually doing the deployment side of it. And with those two sets of data, then have the ability to do that threat investigation. So being able to literally read those logs, have a way to interpret or being able to digest what is ever available to you. And with that investigation, being able to do some type of an assessment on top of that to look for any type of risks or be able to evaluate any type of zero days. And last but not least, have some type of security training program. It's not just, hey, let's not have phishing attempts. Let's also try to train our individuals to be able to be literate within security and say, hey, here's what a cross-site scripting vulnerability looks like. Here's what how a data in transit should be encrypted and non-encrypted. Like we can investigate the actual data stream and show them as developers or compliance say, hey, we don't want to just show PII within clear text. And with that guidance, there's a lot of actual programs that you can practically apply within the DevSecOps or engineering space. One of the easiest ones to address is threat modeling. And this is literally where you're going to diagram out the infrastructure and application deployments. And you're looking at both those things or assets in a visual or code-based way, depending on your teams, listing out the potential risks and remediations for those risks and maintaining that. But with doing so, you're going to ask these 4 questions of what are we building, what can go wrong, what are we doing about it, and how well are we doing. It's constantly having that kind of assessment of here's our assets, here's what they're deployed on, and here are the potential risks that we could have with our deployed assets as well as our infrastructure. I think somebody had a question before I jump into.
Hi, Stephen. This is Ron Werner. I posted a couple of questions in chat. One, are you familiar with the build security and maturity model? Have you ever used that?
I've not personally used it in a business environment, but I know what it is myself.
Okay. It's one of those things. I'm wondering if it's one of those pie in the sky things, which is out there, someone developed, but really hasn't ever been put into practice. It's just it's a good resource potentially for this. And then do you have any training recommendations for developers on DevOps? You mentioned the importance of training.
I will hop into that in a moment, and I can more than happy to elaborate on that that approach.
Fair enough.
I promise I'll get to that. So on threat modeling, I promise I'll hop back into that question around training. The one tool I'd suggest, if you need a graphical way of doing it, is Threat Dragon, if those who haven't used it or not. I do have a GitHub repo that has an example sitting out there. That is one easy approach to, hey, here's a graphical tool that you can use. It generates a JSON file that you can store off in your GitHub repos along with the source if you want to. That way you always have something to go back to look at. You can always pull it up through either your hosted version of Threat Dragon or they have one that they host themselves. Another program is source code scanning. This is literally where we're going to look at the source code for the application, whether you're .NET full stack application, .NET Core application, if you're Java, whatever you are, literally looking at the source code, reviewing for things like passwords, bad patterns, code smells. Those are easy tools, things to look at when you're looking at the source code itself. One of the suggestions that I've used and implemented before is called Checkmarx. The one thing with this specifically, they do have a way for checking source code for a lot of things. When it comes to following the OWASP top 10, if your team's need to be PCI compliant, they have some specific profiles you can use for scanning your actual applications. But for when it comes to actually implementing it within your pipeline, the thing they pay attention to is the operational side of it. And that's what I have in examples, but there, if you're curious, I can always dive through it once we talk about training. But I've got a Python project out there of how you actually operationalize the tool itself. So literally caring about the scans and maintaining how many you actually keep, and then truncating or pruning out your scan data. Because that'll help you as a DevOps team manage the actual tool itself, and those types of things you want to keep in mind, as well as, okay, we've got the source code scanned, we've got it literally sitting inside of Checkmarx. How do we give the results out to somebody? Also, we've got some Python examples of how you parse out that data and then blast out emails or automatically create JIRA tickets for the actual findings within Checkmarx. And that kind of helps work with the developers in their environment that they like. If they're an Atlassian shop, they'll use JIRA. If they're more Microsoft friendly, they might have Azure DevOps, so they might want to have their tickets created in TFS, or what was legacy TFS. Having those things already baked out when you consume something like Checkmarx is very helpful to have around those types of tools. Another easy program to kick off is called open source scanning. This is when you're looking at the literal packages that you're consuming for not only risk but license compliance. And what I mean about this is packages themselves may or may not be maintained, so they have could potentially have known exploits sitting within them. So you want to have some type of tool to analyze the actual packages that you have, compare them against a known database. So NVD is a great example of they have an actual version for each of the packages for most of them, and that if there's a known exploit, they'll have that sorted out for you. So there are tools that you can implement to look at the actual packages, the actual versioning of them, and match them to known risks. On that same boat, if you're in a highly regulatorized industry and you have a policy that states we're only going to allow these specific open source types to be used in production, because hey, we don't want to tell our customers, hey, we're using this library in production, or they don't feel comfortable contributing back to the open source community. Those are the things you have to kind of pay attention to. And there are tools and ways to analyze the actual license tied to the package, or the license tied to the package itself. And one of those tools is called jFrog Xray, where you can literally watch packages being pulled through virtual repositories. And you can do scans of the packages for the license compliant piece and for the security risk. And that, yet again, I've got a GitHub project sitting out there, and I can go through that if you have more questions around that. But basically I did the exact same thing. I operationalized the tooling component with Python, just the team's choice of language, team's choice on language and framework, but then also having the same part for the developers is creating the Jira tickets automatically for them based on findings. But also if they want the email portion, creating the email that says, here's your actual risk by consuming these packages, and here's the license compliant. The license pieces you're actually taking on by using these open source packages. And at that point, you can say, hey, here's how to fix these items or not to fix these items. That will kind of help the teams move forward, addressing the open source risk and license compliance. Another easy program to kick off is security or secrets management. And this is literally where you're looking at the source code. No matter what your framework is or your tool is, this is where we're looking for passwords and API keys. Sometimes people like to store their the actual hashing algorithm for basic auth in source control, which isn't a good thing. So sometimes you'll see vectors and work factors actually stored in source. Those are the things you can find easily with a secrets management program. And we don't want to be storing a source, because if your source ever gets let out in the wild, all your secrets are out in the wild. If your application actually gets decompiled, so if you're from the Microsoft space, you have a DLL, you can literally tear that apart and build it back out if you needed to, but if you can see the literal secrets within them. And one tool for that is Secrets for Bitbucket. I've got some examples out there too of how to operationalize that. So it's literally creating the reports to give out to the developers, creating the Jira tickets for them. And this is right now is a free plugin, entirely free, where you can implement this if you're using Bitbucket. There's also an option for GitHub. They have the same type of solution. So operationalizing their secrets program that they have is also an easy thing to do. And if you're a Jira shop, hey, you can still create Jira tickets for them and the email notification if that's what they require, or using something like ChatOps integrations. Once you have all this data, now you're like, well, why need one more tool, right? But when the application's actually been deployed, it's also nice to have one more final scan, because everything up to now is more the theoretical side, where when you look at the deployed application itself, it's okay, now we have these risks identified from the secrets management, from the open source to the literal source code itself. Now let's see if we can exploit them. So when the applications have been deployed, you can literally do the investigation and see if you are exposed to cross-site scripting. And this is an opportunity where you can use something like Zap, which is free from OWASP, or you can implement something like Rapid7 inside Appsec. They also have a tool where it'll literally crawl your application and try to exploit known findings from NVD. So if you're looking at the WASP Top 10, it'll run through those types of profiles and scan the application for any type of risk. And this is where I stepped in with my developer hat, and I'm like, I'm going to operationalize this one more time and make sure that developers have the information they need to go fix their items. It's all written in Python. Create the Jira tickets if we need to. That's what's sitting in the GitHub repo. And finally, now that you have all of this data put together, you have all these metrics, the easiest thing you can do to kind of communicate better up through the food chain, for like a better context, is create a scorecard. Use all this information that you have, that way you can kind of show the quality work that the developers have done, but also show that the progress they're making by giving some type of either letter grade or numbering system. What we had been able to do at my former employment was you literally created, gave them a letter grade of, you now have Jenkins jobs, your builds are automated, you have SAS and DAS scans put in place, you have teams evaluating them. We literally give them an A, B, C, D, or F of, this is where you're at in your development of your DevOps practices, as well as your DevSecOps practices, meaning this is where you're sitting from our team's perspective, and work with them to kind of meet that goal of your SDL or your policy, and have all the automation put in place. But that's all fine and dandy, except when it comes to training. So there are two different types of programs that I kicked off and have seen some success with. One is the Security Champion program, where you're literally identifying you as a security person or a DevOps person, somebody who's been in this space for a long time, and said, hey, I understand these concepts. Now I want to work with somebody or partner up with them to try and educate the whole team, because you are one individual. You can't always have all the conversations with all the teams. And Security Champion is one of the easier ones where you can literally meet with them once or twice a week and address whatever tooling you have, so the operational side of it, communicate that with them. If they want to have emails of their findings, work with them on that. Do they actually want emails? Do they not? Do they want JIRA tickets automatically created for them? Do they not? Do they need some more training on some code practices or code smells or framework extensions? Like, are they enabling all of their .NET framework or Java framework to actually better their product, but also make their product be more successful in the market? Can they be deployed more easily upon certain infrastructure? And there are some other examples other besides my own. There's something called Security Champion Playbook. And I've got some of my examples sitting out there too of what I've implemented successfully. But basically, the important part is meeting with the people that that you've dedicated or you've picked out that can not only understand what you're trying to preach to them about security and DevOps, but also trying to get them some type of reward system behind it. So can you give them some swag? Can you help them progress through their developer life? What can you do to help them be more successful in your company? I'm gonna pause there because it looks like there's quite a few questions. I like questions.
Should we jump in with questions? Is that okay?
Go ahead. Sorry, that might be easier. Go right ahead.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were reading the chat. Yeah, I asked a quick question. Yeah, this is amazing. This is great for Appsec. This is great. And this is a very valid question that we are currently struggling with. You know, you mentioned about scorecard. So do you have any, you mentioned about scorecards, right? I'm going to go look at that URL as well. You have on the screen, but what are your suggestions with some other, commercial off the shelf or something that doesn't require a lot of configuration to kind of put together a scorecard? Yeah.
I haven't found a lot of things that have met my needs yet, since this is kind of more of an evolving space. I literally have an Excel sheet, which isn't pretty, that has all of my expectations. It's like we wrote out, hey, we need to literally have a scan of your source code, which was, I think, an F. D was literally, okay, we're going to have the scan kicked off. We're going to have people start reviewing it. It's literally having those lists of expectations to find out with a letter grade and an Excel sheet was the best solution I could come up with. The cheapest that was actually going to be doable and consumable by the org. So it was easily to implement. I mean, there might be other tools you can kind of put together, and I'll hop into one other approach in a second, but there aren't a lot yet that I have found personally. And if other people have ideas, by all means, hit me up where we can kind of talk about them too.
Yeah, you exactly mentioned my pain there, really. So yeah, on the same page. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Shout out, are there any other questions? And I'll hop into my last section I wanted to bump into. Give you one more second. Okay. So now you've done all this work. You now know what your expectations are from your client's perspective, from your customer's perspective. Like, we have all these expectations. We have some programs started off, and by all means, those are not all of them. There are a lot of different programs you can talk about. Try to dub it down a little bit. I would pick and choose what you can implement. Some of that's going to be kind of dependent upon your team's consumption, your literal development team's consumption. Some of that you'll kind of have to explore yourself and determine what's going to be the easiest to approach for the organization. When you can put it all together, if you can, this is what would be nice to have, is a literal single pipeline with all these tools integrated. And it's possible if you have something like Jenkins, Ansible, GitLabs, whatever your automation tool is, try to add these individual components as asynchronous processes to initially start with, just to have, say, we can show that we have some type of review cycle, some PR process cycle that we're going through. We're looking at the literal source code for any type of secrets management in a single pipeline. And we're literally addressing each one of these security tools asynchronously during a build process. So if you can do a complete CI/CD, literally just throw these tools in asynchronously, let it scan in behind the backgrounds, generate the reports later. That'll at least get you as a developer or a DevOps engineer your feet wet, but also get the developers' feet wet too, of saying, hey, I've got these actually working. Please don't be afraid of them. I actually have the results. Can we spend some time, look at the results and address them? It is very helpful when you can show it in a single pane of glass or a single pipeline. But when you have all this data and you can hopefully put it inside of one single pipeline, is creating some type of dashboard. And this is where, like, why don't you have a solution? There are a few that are coming. I know I myself follow a couple other security guys who are trying to build them and push them out in the wild. Once those actually get officially pushed out in the wild, I'll try to follow up back with the meetup group if you're curious. But what I was trying to do too at my previous gig was literally pull all the results using the APIs from all the tools, throw them, pull them with Python and throw them into a MongoDB or a SQLDB just so you have it somewhere. Then you use something, depending upon your organization, you could use Power BI, you could use whatever you want. You could use Splunk dashboards, you could do Kibana, you could do Grafana if you wanted to. Whatever you can do to present that data in a single pane saying, hey, I've got the automation, the CI portion out there. You can see my PRs being pulled by product. I'm literally showing the scan results. So then when it comes down to audit time or exam time, you can say, hey, look at here. I've got all these things put in a row. I have all my expectations documented. Here's my literal policy that I've applied. It becomes a lot more of an easier conversation when it comes down to audit or, hey, I want to do a pen test engagement. We can do that because you'll have all the history of the scans. You'll have the policies of the scans configured. You'll have the scan platforms operationalized. And then you can get a list of who has access to what from those actual tools and what permissions they have. But also, if you had a chance, do that same on your infrastructure. Have it literally, here's all of my users, here's the 80 groups, hopefully that they're in. If you have 80, here's the 2 MFA piece that you have tied to it. Have it all in one place. That way you have it all ready to go. Because you may have a customer request a pen test at some time. You may have one of your clients requests you to do some type of audit. Like you need to do be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. You'll have all that information ready to go. And you won't have to worry about the little fires of trying to run after the work when it's after the fact. And that's truly what I mean by let's extend left and right, because what I said is all nice and dandy, right? I mean, you as an individual have to not only reach back out to your development teams and to apply these tools, work through them with remediating the scans and looking through the risks, but then also find a way, like a dashboard of, I need to be able to show these results off to the board somehow or the C-level people somehow. So literally addressing the security concerns, risks throughout the org, but also just getting that full visibility. It's not always easy, but once you start off with one program, it's not so bad. Start off with one like Checkmarx or SonarQube, literally look at the source code. That's usually an easier win for the developers. Once you have that one product buy-in, go out from there, work with the next team, and expand from there and see how much buy-in you can get from the org. Any questions, feedbacks, concerns, other topics you want to see? Do you want me to pull up the Python? I'm more than happy to do so if we got some time. Let me know how I can help you guys continue in this space.
It's been great. Thank you for doing this.
So people are asking about pricing. So yeah, Checkmarx is not cheap. Veracode is not cheap. There are a lot of other tools out there that aren't cheap. SonarQube, I would consider more of a quality matrix tool, not necessarily a security tool, but they do have a community edition that is free. There are some other OWASP tools I can share after that are available as well. I mean, if you don't literally have a budget for doing those things, you can create some tools yourself written Python, and when you do a PR, you can actually add it in. So if you literally just want to say, hey, I want to start a tool myself, you can add in things like a password check. Literally look for the password field. Granted, that's usually a false positive, but it's something to get you into that environment to get you used to what those tools are actually doing behind the scenes. Somebody wants to see. And feel free to jump in.
Would that be Threat Dragon? Is what?
Actually, any of the tools. How do you use, particularly Threat Dragon? I was not familiar with that, so thank you so much for pointing that out. But really, any of the tools. I work with numerous clients, small, medium businesses and organizations that never have enough funds, particularly for security. And so they're always asking, well, what can I do at no cost or little cost? So anything you can show, to help with that, appreciated.
All right, live demo time. I like it.
Yeah, demo.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. Hopefully I can reshare. Can you guys see Threat Dragon?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna cheat, and I'll throw this in the chat if people are curious. So that is literally hosted by them. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily use this for all of your GitHub repos, obviously, or Bitbucket repos, whatever you want to do, but it's more of a playground to give you guys exposure to it, but also, hey, if you do have stuff in GitHub, they already had the auth built into it. So I've already kind of built out a diagram, and I'll hopefully do this with them. The developers on whiteboard if you're in person, Threat Dragon if you're virtual. Sometimes people like having an audit record, so I'll use something like Threat Dragon. That way you have some type of blob or JSON blob that comes out of it that you can store and maintain. But you literally just drag and drop your actors that you want around in your diagram, list them out, and if you want to start addressing their potential risks, you click on the object itself. You can give it a name if you want to, and then there's an option here that says edit threats. This is where you can say, there might be, if you don't have a WAF or you don't have a CSP, a content security policy, there could be some potential server information exposure. That's the kind of conversation you want to have with the teams of what else is a potential threat if you don't have authentication. What type of risk is it? In a case where there's no auth, it's a potential spoofing, and then you describe the case. You can kind of talk about the severity. Is no auth a high, medium, low severity? And when you click save, it'll store it in that JSON blob. That way you can retain it for your information. And then as a team adds something like Okta or OFA or whatever, then you can come back to the threat model during your peer review cycle and say, okay, look, we had these threats. No auth was a thing. Now we have something implemented. You can mark it as a mitigated. And that risk will have a checkbox on it, and you're good to go. I mean, that's as simple as it can be at times for different teams. Is there anything else specifically you kind of want to see about the product itself, or?
Can you tie it into or use the MITRE ATT&CK framework?
You could. I mean, if you want to have this in your program tied to that, you could. I haven't gotten the ability to do that yet. That's probably one of my next things to go after. But if you wanted to add that into your program for the minor attack framework, you could.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions? I know I kind of went short, but I wanted to make sure people had time to ask questions and question my years of experience.
I've got something for you.
What's up?
So where do you find the DevSecOps, as you've coined it, falls inside the organizational scale between both developers and both, well, product people? Like, what is the level of influence? What is the level of like traction that you get when you're trying to actually express some of these security vulnerabilities or potentially exploitable attack vectors?
It all goes back to your networking skills at the organization, and this is the battle that I've had to live in for numerous years. I mean, and that's what I mean by extend. That's probably the better definition of extend left and right. If you don't have that partnership with security, you're not going to get access to the tools. If you don't have some type of influence within development, you're not going to get them to let you work with them on remediating findings, but also to say, hey, we want to start breaking builds based on findings from SonarQube, for example. You truly have to have that kind of partnership build up with them or more. And sometimes what that looks like, coming from the DevOps side, to kind of get that, for example, is I literally spent 2 weeks with a dev team in the .NET space. I'm like, hey, what can I do to help you? And they were more than happy to let me literally write code with them. Because I go, give me your grunt work. What do you need done? Oh, can you put this button on this page? Like 100%, I'll do that for you. And then having those kind of contacts with them and being willing to spend time with them to help them better their product, then that you kind of have that connection with them. Honestly, it's a matter of time and being honest with them and working with them, and usually you'll have a better kind of conversation when it comes to those kind of cooperative events, and it becomes a lot easier to have those kind of conversations that can be tough.
Got it. So if that's to the right, we're saying that engineering and dev orgs are on to the right. To the left, what's your sales pitch? I'm going to scan these applications and that's going to save us money?
No, you have to approach it in breach terms. So if you can show off, hey, hey, look, you've got a SQL connection sitting out here in the wild. What's that potential risk? That is very, very high. And if you can show them, hey, here's the risk, sometimes it makes a conversation easy. If they don't like security at all, it's going to be a hard sell. Sometimes I get too technical in the weeds. I know that's my problem. So you have to kind of wordsmith your way through a conversation of, yes, here is the potential risk. Here's the cost of not fixing it. Here's the cost of fixing these risks out in the wild. Oh yeah, by the way, if you use this tool called X, Y, and Z, it would help mitigate this sooner so we wouldn't have to pay these bills. Sometimes it can be an easier conversation.
Thank you very much.
Become friends with your partners in audit. If you start pointing out risks to them, if you start pointing out these risks, say, hey, what's going on here? They'll jump all into it and give you all the support you need.
100%. Like I happen to be friends with the CSO, and that helped a lot of conversations at the previous organization. They were more than willing to let me jump into conversations I probably wasn't supposed to be privy to, but I had that rapport with the CSO, and he's like, yes, by 100%, go talk to our compliance persons, write up make a risk register for this finding item, and then let's go address it with the head of implementations. And that was an easy conversation because the CSO already led the conversation. I just come in with the technical side and, oh, hey, how do we fix that? Oh, hey, I know the technical side. I'll go fix that for you. Okay. Or partner up with whomever knows how to get that type of risk fixed. If it's on the AD side, if it's literally server needs patched, I mean, who has access to it? Is it an on-premise device? Is it sitting in a cloud infrastructure? Like having those partnerships will 100% help you become successful as a DevOps person, whether you're looking at it from the security lens or the non-security lens.
Well, I hope you don't mind. I threw out in chat a few other resources in Nebraska, talking to some folks. The Omaha OWASP group recently restarting, Michael Bourne restarting that, is talking in a similar space. And then there's the DEF CON 402, DC 402 group, really cool Slack channel. Nebraska CERT, coincidentally, meeting, what time is it? In a little less than 2 hours, is also part of this community. So, and if anyone's interested, I also have started there's a Slack channel now for the Nebraska cybersecurity, IT audit, privacy community. So if you're interested, ping me on LinkedIn.
100%, that's awesome. I mean, there are a lot of security people I follow too. Security Now is a good podcast to listen to. Application Security is a good podcast. If you haven't heard of Security Journey, they have an awesome training program that you can use as well. I'm a big fan of theirs, but they are on the pricier side, but it's not bad. You get video content, you get literal code example snippets, things that actually help developers evolve themselves. Besides just working with them independently, you can have that kind of frameworky tool to help address things. And like another good example is Checkmarx code bashing. They also have a tool for literally training developers, literally writing code in your language of choice, whether it be Go, .NET, Java, what have you. That's another option for developer training. Forgot about that.
Yeah, great stuff. Steve, there was a couple of people are asking about, you know, how do you kind of, what was the question? I think Ishrup and one other person had it, Emily, about scaling and how to roll out the security champion program. I don't know if you can share anything about that.
Sure. I was literally a security champion, so it was very easy to kind of expand out the program to solve. Me being a software engineer by trade initially at the org made it really easy for me to kind of have that communication and say, hey, I want to spin this up because I was the first person to do it. And that's what it kind of takes to get the ground ball rolling, is start with one person, which happened to be me at the previous org. And I got the ball rolling within my specific team and my product. And then I reached out to my product teams that were left and right of me, which were very similar products built on the same framework. That way I could take the tools and approaches that I had individually and help to see where I could apply it to them first and within my same language and framework. And then I took up from there and training other people. So we're in the literal Java space. I'm like, okay, guys, I got this from .NET. How can I get this to work with the Spring framework and how to implement the same type of policies on your guys' side, and then blow it out even further to Golang. And I went purely from the engineering side. And it was a program of one became into a program of 35 individuals, besides the literal DevOps team that was kind of responsible for them. And to keep those 35 individuals responsible, the DevOps team, which is made of about 5 or however many, don't try to blast out emails to every individual person. Try to pick a set of individuals. So if you are in the Microsoft space, which obviously you know that I am now, I picked my 5 people that I knew that were strong in development on the .NET space. That was kind of my area of focus. Individuals who are stronger on the Java space or the Maven package space, they picked out their 5 or 6 people as well, and we kind of broke it out. That way we could not only kind of collaborate with all within that language and framework space, but also talk about security and how to automate your builds and how to potentially deploy things on Docker. Those types of conversations and splitting it out, just starting piece by piece, smallly introducing more people, more frameworks, more languages, expanding out your breadth. So getting compliance on board the security champion program, blasting out the C-level people of, hey, I've kicked off this thing that is helping train our engineers for free. It's literally me doing it for an hour a week with specific people. It gets the ball rolling, it gets communication going, and the organization can kind of choose to go with it or not go with it.
Great. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, thanks a lot, Stephen. Really appreciate that. I know I learned a lot of good tools out there. So great stuff. We'll have this recording available on our YouTube site, and then I think Stephen shared the slides also. So we'll have those shared with the group too. So, and all the other resources you shared with us on GitHub. So thanks a lot for that. I think, can you make me the host again? I don't know if I can. Yeah, can you make me the host? And then we'll, again, the last part. I did see Dawn was able to join. Dawn, I don't know if you wanted to, I read the like 1 or 2 sentences about you guys, but I think if you don't mind, just for a couple minutes, just sharing, you know, about what you guys do, and then we'll do the giveaways.
Yeah. Hey, sorry I'm a little tardy this afternoon, guys. I enjoyed being here. You know, if you've already kind of read the blurb about Orsay, I think that's good enough. We're a DevOps automation shop based north of Atlanta, and over the last couple of years, we've evolved into some other things as far as integrations, and you know, we have some analytics things that we'd like to do. Certainly, security is part of our world as well. But Orsay's got clients all over the country, very many clients all over the country, but they've never had anybody here in Omaha. So I had come from a company called Serious Computer Solutions. I worked within their information security team from a sales standpoint, and joined Orsay about a year ago. So in this COVID crazy world that we live in, this is the Zoom, where we all live on Zoom, and just looking to network and to get to know some new friends around the area that, you know, they share similar interests. So I just wanted to say hello to everybody, jump on real quick. Enjoyed the pieces of the presentation, Stephen, that I was able to hear. Appreciate what you do. And yeah, there's a couple of gift cards that will, I don't know, you know, Mike, what the process is for, you know, the selection or the drawing, or however you want to do that, but we'll get something out to a couple of you, hopefully by the end of the day today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Don. Thanks for sponsoring. And yeah, so I've got this really fancy program here that we'll do to choose. Let's see, where is my share button? The bright green one in the middle. All right, can everybody see this? All right, so I basically took the list of everybody that's been here and on the call, and then put them here in the attendees list. We'll go ahead and pick 2, and then you do have to be present. So if for some reason they just stepped out, we'll pick another one here. So then pick the first one here. Of course, you have to do it with, you know, PowerShell script. You know, we're DevOps here, so we have to automate our there. So let's see, we'll just come down here and draw a winner. All right, Jack, you still here?
I am still here.
All right, well, congratulations, Jack. So we'll get you, I'll message you on the meetup if that works, and get you that.
Perfect. Awesome. And +1 for using VS Code. That's cool.
So the next winner is Andrew. I think I saw Andrew still on there. He's still on? Can you guys see him on there? Looks like he just dropped. All right. We'll pick one more winner, right? Last call for Andrew. Yeah, let's see him. All right, here we go. Chris, I think you're still on.
Let's go.
All right, congratulations. All right, well, that's it. We'll get those winners the gift cards. I just want to say again, thanks, Stephen, for the great presentation, and Don, thanks for sponsoring. And again, if you know anybody that's interested in presenting or sponsoring, be looking for September, and I'm guessing the boot camp is going to get pushed back, so we'll probably have October there too. But yeah, I'd like to keep it going every month. So thanks again. We'll get this out on YouTube. I'll get the links out to everybody, and hopefully we'll see everybody next week, or next month, I mean. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thank you. Do well out there.
Yeah.